Now, the presenters will be given 15 minutes to present the main ideas of their papers or their thoughts, so that we will have sufficient time to ask questions when the presenters will again be given the opportunity to elaborate on the issues that may be raised by members of the public here. So, the first presentation, the role of African diaspora in financing the continent's future. And I would like to invite right away why I am not introducing each one of them at this time is because you have them in here. So in the interest of economizing on time, I'm going to invite Dr. Worku to proceed with his presentation. Dr. Worku, please. You want to be there? Fine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here. 15 minutes is not much, so I'm going to rush into the points that I would like to make. I am given this role to talk about the diaspora, perhaps because I've lived outside Ethiopia for more than 40 years, so I suspect I qualify for that. So let me see, is this what I need to use? Yeah? Okay. So I'm grateful. I've had this opportunity to discuss what I think is a highly important topic regarding the diaspora. Let me first define. I have two definitions for you. The first definition basically is general. It is those groups of persons who've migrated and their descendants who maintain a connection to their homeland. That's diaspora. People who have blood relation to the continent, but they live outside the continent, but that's not sufficient. They have connection to the continent. The second one is an African Union definition. This is taken out of their text. African diaspora is a group of people consisting of African origin living outside the continent, irrespective of their citizenship and nationality, and who are willing to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of African Union. So that's who we're talking about. So any of you who've lived outside the country of Ethiopia, you are diaspora according to this definition. Now, when I prepared this, I actually took the topic very seriously. I actually thought many more Africans other than Ethiopians would be here. Had I known this is predominantly an Ethiopian audience, I would have honed it more to Ethiopia. So it's broadly African. There are three waves of migration that we need to recognize. Now, people in the world do migrate. It's nothing new for Africans, Ethiopians to migrate outside their country. But according to our historical records, you all know that Africans were taken out of their continent unwillingly to the North American, South American, and European continents, and they were forced. And in fact, that happened for 400 years. And then the second wave is post-independence in the 60s and forward. And so millions. Now, in the first wave, as you see in the screen, 12 million people of African origin migrated. And in the second wave, more willing people who wanted to get education and who wanted to live outside. And again, in millions they traveled. And most went to Western Europe or United States. The third wave is more recent, 1980s and forward. And primarily these left their continent for problems because they were fleeing from failed governments and wars and poverty and political persecution. I think we can recognize Ethiopians by millions live abroad for the same reason. Now, diaspora are all very valuable, I would say, but I've put them in three categories. The highly successful ones, who we can target and attract because they have so much value. These are academically advanced, financially well off, and socially really known. So those diaspora we definitely want to attract. In fact, Ethiopians, because I lived in the United States most of my life, Ethiopians who live in the United States are considered highly successful. Most of them are well educated, well off financially, and really can benefit their country. The second group, I call them so-so. Just plain vanilla, I call them. They're doing okay. They're doing fine. They own homes, they have cars, but that's about it. They take care of their family. But then there's a third category. The third category are those who are really, really struggling. So it's not all diaspora that are really highly successful, and we do have, but I do say in that slide, they're all really, they can bring value because of their experience. Okay, I'm trying to forward the slide. Okay, it's stuck. Can you forward the slide, please? Ah, okay. Okay. So let's put the African diaspora in perspective. Now, first of all, we need to understand the continent in its true history. We know for 400 years, this is a continent that's been in bondage. For 100 additional years, this is a continent that was colonized. And then it's only 60 years since independence. And so we need to put things in perspective in trying to understand Africa, the continent. Maybe Ethiopia doesn't quite share every point in there, but in terms of Africa, those are the points that we need to remember. And from that perspective, we know there are 140 million people across the globe who have originated from Africa. Most of them live in Brazil. Many, many, many millions live in the United States and France and Europe and so forth. So this is the large context of the African diaspora. But in this discussion, we're really talking about the 30 million diaspora of African origin who actually left within the last 60 years and their descendants. So that's who we're really addressing. There are 40,000 African diaspora who have PhDs and they live outside the continent. There are 250,000 scientists and physicians who live outside the continent. 20,000 of them leave the country or their continent every year. In fact, globally, many more Africans migrate compared to any other continent. So 8 out of 10 migrants are in fact Africans. Then there's a little interesting statistic about the 100,000 expatriates who live in the continent because there are not enough experts of African origin to take care of business in the continent. So we've brought in all outsiders, experts, at the expense of $4 billion a year. Things that Africans, in fact, can't take care of, but they live outside. And Africa is losing because it is not competitive. That's really the big point I want to make. The diaspora are significant in so many ways. And just briefly, financially, they're well off. They can be beneficial. Intellectually, they're highly educated. Professionally, they have expertise. Politically, culturally, and globally, the music industry and the arts, as well as sports, is dominated by people of African origin, and socially the same. They bring high value. What I want to sell today is the idea that, now that this is an Ethiopian audience, that those Ethiopians who live abroad bring in so much value to us, to Ethiopia. And we need to really rethink the value that we put on them. They are more than foreigners in many contexts. For example, they have everything that expatriates can bring. In addition to that, they have passion about their own country. They have goodwill. They want to do well with their people. They invest and reinvest whatever they make in Ethiopia back into Ethiopia. They don't take it away like expatriates do. They bring in diversity of ideas. They buy locally. They buy houses. They buy cars. Expatriates don't. And so they're very, very important, and they can be good models. Their capacity is big. It's been proven. If you look at the remittance record, it's very clear globally. And Africans, in fact, contribute $40 billion a year to the continent. And in the case of Ethiopia, about roughly $5 billion a year comes in remittances. And these are formal remittances. The informal, I would say to you, probably is larger than that. And so they are very, very valuable. In fact, Nigeria gets $23 billion every year from its diaspora. Liberia, its GDP, 26% of its GDP comes from remittances. And what I think is quite important is they save to the tune of $53 billion annually. These are Africans who live abroad. And globally, the number is 613 billion in remittances sent to different parts of the world. Someone mentioned earlier that we need to look at countries like India, like China, and Philippines, South Korea, and so forth, how they in fact are benefiting. They've put the conditions correct for diaspora to come in and be participants in the development of their country. Most monies and remittances come from countries like United States, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. It's more than remittances. This is a research work that I wanted to promote. Basically, it says African nations, rather than you spending time chasing aid money, assistance money around the world from rich countries, work on your diaspora. They have more value than do aids, foreign aids. For example, overseas development assistance is not as attractive because less likely these monies that come in from diaspora is less likely to be misappropriated. Funds focus directly on families. You know, the millions that come in, the billions that come in come directly to those people who need them. And then there's no bureaucracy in the middle. It's directly used. And so this is quite attractive. Now, I know there is ambitious development plans put together in these 21st centuries. However, we need to harness that and make use of it. And this is, I wanted to cite this gentleman who teaches in Vienna University. So that's very important to me. And the focus to me is on the shift of attitude. There is in Ethiopia an attitude that I think should be, can be improved on the diaspora, because we need to think of them as people who have much more experience because they have lived in other places. So government needs to attract the diaspora because they are credible, and they need to put together strategies that are valuable so that people can come in, like in the Asian countries. Ordinary folk need to have a better attitude of the diaspora because they can be of value here again. Institutions need to treat them equally as they do expats. Positions of power. People in positions of power really need to work with their employees and their attitudes, so attitudes can shift. We need to accept the diaspora, in my view, because they are experts, they're equal to expats and more, and they bring high value. They're natives. They know how things work locally, and they have the passion. And so, as you know, as a continent, we want to have Africa prosper. We have Agenda 2063. That's the time we've set aside, 50 years to make Africa the Africa we want. And these 50 years are, in fact, planned to make Africa great. So how to make Africa great is to use all its potential. And we need to aspire for good governance, democracy, justice. This is what Agenda 2063 says. We need to build strong cultural identity. We need to plan vibrant, so our young ones are vibrant. We need to unite, and we have to be resilient. And for all this plan, this ambitious plan that we have for Africa, we need the help and assistance of Africans, and I think we need to bring them and encourage them to come. And that's my 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Excellent timing. I didn't have to ask the speaker. I didn't have to intervene. Perfect timing. Thank you. Let's now follow this. Yared?
Okay, thank you very much. I thought I would have a bit longer time frame because this is the biggest issue in Ethiopia, you know. So if we can solve the problem in 15 minutes, that's good, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go rush you through because you know most of the things. I think let's start. Okay, so we're looking at foreign currency shortage. Why we have this problem? Are we adding to the problem by creating some sort of myth about the foreign currency? Is there really a shortage of, you know, globally shortage of foreign currency and so on? So let's start. We know all the problem. We have a foreign currency problem. And then it's affecting now foreign direct investment because a lot of companies are worried about to invest, and then when they're going to take their money out, it's going to affect our GDP growth because most of the input for our products and services is coming from abroad. So, yeah. So there is a myth of foreign currency. I will say this is like urban myth. You know, there is quite a lot of things people talk about, you know, which is accepted as a truth. You know, a lot of people say we only use 10% of our brain. Okay, if you go to your doctor and say, oh, you have 50% brain damage, oh, that's fine. You know, you can go with the rest. So it's not that kind of perception exists in foreign currency problem. There is a big perception which is probably started by, our foreign currency problem cannot be solved in our lifetime. It's just hopeless case kind of thing. And then I believe this was probably said by the former foreign financial minister. So why this is happening? Because we modeling two things: trade balance and then availability of foreign currency. I know countries have to export things to bring a dollar, but that's not the only way. So it's not equal. If we are talking about our export product has to be more than we import, that will never happen. But if it's shortage of dollar, this dollar or foreign currency, it's come through different routes. So if we look at most negative countries with negative trade balance, they have no problem with the foreign currency. So what is the problem? The problem is the policy, the national bank, or what it is. So what is the global foreign currency problem? I think it's Milton Friedman who said, 1969, if we can print money and then drop it through helicopter, we can overcome liquidity trap and then solve the problem, in monetary deflation and so on. So that came in 2008, what's called qualitative easing. It's just printing money out of thin air. Everybody does it. Now that's the biggest problem for a global economy. If you see the European Central Bank used to print between 60 to 80 billion per month. And then they have printed 700 billion which is more, billion euros, which is more than $1 billion. If you go to Bank of England websites, they have printed 445 billion per electronic money, which is it's huge to rescue the Northern Rock and all those things. The US is very difficult to find exact figure. Some of like the Financial Times says US has printed 4.5 trillion. If you go to Bloomberg, 15 trillion printing, and then CBS News. So everybody used to do it. Now, everybody now is worried about this printed money, except in our country. So this money, where it goes, is going to China. The Americans printing money daily to pay the Chinese, the bond, they import and subsidize everything. China is worried about the foreign currency reserve, which is already might collapse. So they have to kick it back to the wallet. We are lucky in Africa, so there is, if you go online and then check everything, the imminent collapse of dollar is a big issue because we don't know where this money is how it's going to be pulled out of the sector. So this is the biggest issue. Everybody's worried they have too much dollar reserve. So what they do is they just buy assets. They invest it in third countries. They just convert it into real asset. We are not part of that problem. I think maybe the foreign currency issue maybe started, 40 years communist regulation. It started, I think, the project started when last year engineer Zadeqa mentioned, we haven't changed the 1977 regulation. Everybody before the Berlin Wall, everybody has. All the socialist countries used to have a big foreign currency problem. And then now, even most of countries, which used to be the Eastern Bloc, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Poland, are investing in our country with the foreign currency. So this is the biggest issue now. We are equating foreign currency shortage with trade balance, with export. If you look at the whole data, the global data, 80% of the countries have negative trade balance. It's very few countries have got their export cover their import. This is like what's called a zero-sum game. It's like football. You have two chances. You win, the other lose, or you have 50%. So if in ideal world, if we think about exports covering the expense, only 50% of the countries could have, what is covering the expense. So whatever is not went to China or into these countries which are being dumped by with huge dollar and euro, they have to send it back to other countries. like foreign direct investment. It's not out of love. China is now putting, in mining, in other assets all over Africa because they have to turn it into real value. Tourism is another issue, remittances another, and then they have to, these are, how the money should circulate. If not, if it was only trade, export and import, I think the Americans wouldn't have be able to buy anything from China and then, or from Japan. In the 80s, 90s, Japanese used to have huge American reserve. So what they did, they went back into both Sony and all the other American companies. Now the Koreans are buying, the Chinese are buying American companies, British companies. So the rest of the money is coming to Africa. In our country, we consider these countries as an investor. Turkey is a big investor in Ethiopia with huge negative trade balance. India is the same, Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, UK, Brazil, even Somalia is investing or buying from us. So all these countries, they have deficit, but they don't have a problem with, look, Somaliland and Somalia, now they have, they're exporting goats, cattle, banana, but if you go to Hargeisa, you can buy, you can take a bag full of birr and then you can convert it on the street of Hargeisa into dollar. There is no issue. Somalia is surprisingly the second biggest importer of Ethiopian product. How did this happen? So if it was an export, production and export, they wouldn't have be able to buy our product, but they do because the money is coming from different routes. We have a huge mindset problem. Some of the regulation is it's amazing. For 41 years, Ethiopians weren't allowed to take more than 200 birr out of the country. I don't know, but it's just like scarce, material which is not existing. I don't know what as now it's 1,000 birr. It's the strength of the country if you could be able to take money out of the country and then have a meal or a transport in Somalia, in Dubai, or in that should be a positive thing. But we think that the things are reserved. A kind of inverted view of the world. I think this is extremely, what do you call it, the poverty consciousness, a scarcity mentality. If we have, if our money goes out, I heard to print 100 birr note, it takes 1.6 birr. So even if somebody take it and then dump it somewhere, you can replace it anytime. Americans are, in fact, printing in trillion. Countries with a positive trade balance are like Germany, China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Israel have the trade balance. The rest of the countries have a negative trade balance, but they're still trading. So we end up, diagnosing the problem and then see we have Marxism in our country. I grew up during the Marxist time. That was the big belief, which was the bourgeois have everything and then the proletariat have nothing. So, Marx said nothing great has been achieved without violence. So what's called you have to destroy and share equally and live happily ever after. So we had, it's not this limited to, we have a bread ration, everything was rationed in our time. The issue is if bread is not rationed, somebody will have two and the other will go with empty stomach. This was the last year when Zadeka mentioned. So I tried to add up after that, where could we get the money? I was told there is like 5 billion formal, informal remittance. We get about $3 billion worth of aid. We have, if you go to investment office website, we have like in 2017, $3.5 billion worth of things. We were told 1 million tourists have arrived here, and then if you multiply by 100, you will have $1 billion. Ethiopian Airlines is revenue is about 60 billion birr, and then if you take everything else, we can assume, 6 billion birr is $2 billion. Shipping lines is also earning about $500 million. Ethiopian Power Authority about, 80 million. And then we have all the loan. And this is a very underestimated figure, which is China, IMF, World Bank, and all the other things are been lending us money. Still, we have a problem. And then the other thing is we are the third diplomatic capital of the world after New York and Geneva we are the biggest. So all these people have to bring their own money, buy goods and service in Ethiopia. So if you added those things, we will have 22 billion, roughly about that kind of money. We get 3.5 billion from export. And then when you add our 2017 import bill, 17 billion, we should have got like 5.8 billion dollar worth of surplus. Okay, we have debts and all that thing to pay, but it shouldn't be as big a problem as that. So, I mean, technically, you can do it on the piece of paper and then do it because you all are bankers, but this has the potential of the country, 20 to 23 billion dollar, and then import bill 17 billion. All communist countries, so the problem is money is not coming. It's just revolving around. It's not coming in Ethiopia. If you see now, for example, a good example of this, all international organizations, they don't pay salary in Ethiopia. They pay it in Djibouti, in Kenya, in Dubai, in England, and sort of thing. So they bring only the essential part, because if the money is in Ethiopia, the employees are not allowed to have a foreign currency account. Immediately it will be multiplied by 28, converted into birr, so they don't want it. So all that money is out. This is a solution. National Bank has got 28 states, use it or lose it. It's just crazy idea. I mean, if somebody earn now 1 million import duty, he's going to lose it. He cannot plan to save 5 million and then start up. If he's a coffee exporter or sesame, he cannot plan to set up a factory to process it. So immediately what they do, they set up a new import company. They will bring soap, nappies, biscuits, and consumable goods. So within 28 days, the money has to be kicked out of the country. We cannot have a reserve if we impose import substitute. Otherwise, a lot of people will have to convert. The third is diaspora investment. When this paper was presented last time, it was an issue. There is two investment, active and passive. I'm here to do active business. But a lot of people have career, professional career, they cannot. But there's no vehicle that they can invest. If we have the stock market, or if they were allowed into regulated financial sector, or anything which is regulated, we would have got, that's it. So the time is going. So that's another thing. The other solution which I recommend is tourism is the biggest obstacle is the immigration service. I invite people to do software and sort of thing. If I tell them they will come and see the insurance company or financial sector for 5 days, they give me 7 days visa. But if you see us, one tourist, if stayed, in Harmony or somewhere, they spend about $250 a day. If they stay longer, that's a big thing. $250 a day means 100 kilogram of coffee. But they don't take that coffee because you have the fertilizer, the transport, the packaging. So if it's 30% of the value might stay in a country, but in a hotel and a tourism, you can only provide them bed sheets and then soap. So that's the crisis. So we have a restrictive system which doesn't allow people to come and then stay. I mean, I don't know how many Europeans or Asians have come to apply for asylum or stay here, but the regulation is very tough. Land is the biggest opportunity for liberalization because a lot of people do not want to come, the diaspora, but they want to have a house. If we open that one, it's huge potential investment in the sector. If we allow to sell land for 10,000, 250 square meter, 1 billion USD will be snapped in a day or two. And then for development of that land, you will have $5-6 billion worth of stock market is the other thing. We talked about it. We need to have regulated market. Unless if we have a regulated market, people, why the diaspora want to buy the insurance in the financial sector? Because it's regulated. But the rest of the market is not regulated, so they will lose. So international organization, people should be allowed. If I work for international company and then paid in dollar, why shouldn't I keep it? The Kenyans allow it. Everybody has it. I can go and open an account in Kenya, in Djibouti, or anywhere else, but not in Ethiopia. So Ethiopian Airlines employees work in a station, they have to keep their money out. All the international organization employees are foreign office, even ECAU, everybody has got an account here. So the other thing is, why do we restrict the money? If we can buy service and goods we will be able to exchange birr for service. The other thing is, why shouldn't we allow even relaxed financial service, offshore service? If Ethiopian has the right to go and then open an account in Dubai, Kenya, Djibouti, why not South Sudanese, keep his money in our country? So, Kenyans, all the other people. So these are all could add up, overcome our foreign currency problem. I think the time is up. I've seen the stop sign, so thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, good. I'll try this again. Good afternoon. Okay, you know me, so good afternoon. I know you ate a big lunch, so maybe I can forgive you for not being enthusiastic. Probably you're tired of hearing my voice from this morning. Hopefully I have something interesting to say this afternoon. Mr. Chairman, good to be back on stage with you again. We do a lot of these things together. And I see we have a full house in the afternoon, so this is a very dedicated audience. So I'm going to do my best to keep you awake. So I've been here, this is my third time in this conference. I have to congratulate the organizers. They're very persistent, they're very determined. They organize things beautifully. In the middle of the night, I get texts from Dr. Gamachu. Said, don't forget. So I flew back in because of you. I think it's worth it because this is probably one of a kind for the sector. I think you all agree with me. And I think this sector, the financial service sector, is extremely important to the Ethiopian economy, obviously to the global economy, but more specifically to the Ethiopian economy, that we should have these kinds of open discussions, very frank. Regardless of what you thought about this morning's session, about you all beating up on the NBE, I thought it was a good feedback, right? So I'm back again to talk about a topic I think I talked about twice in a row, but in different angles. This time, I think it's a given that we're going to have a stock market, right? I mean, we've seen the one-page template issued by the Prime Minister's office. Some of us, including Eyesuswork, we've been on this path for at least 18 years. 2001, I think. I remember. I mean, we got to give Eyesuswork the credit. He also doesn't give up. So we've been on this path of educating and creating the awareness and making people feel comfortable that we do need the capital markets, okay? We are part of the global economy. More and more, we can now, the Ethiopian economy is actually, whether you believe it or not, we now can manage supply chains from Hawassa Industrial Park all the way to New York City. That wasn't the case 10 years ago. Calvin Klein suits made in Hawassa now are sold in New York. That means we're part of the global economy. So for us, it's no longer an academic discussion. We're reaching a critical stage on the size of the economy and the sophistication of the economy, even though it's still relatively not that sophisticated, but it's getting there, that we should seriously consider how we're going to go forward. And as I said, the government of Ethiopia finally said, we are going to have a stock market by 2020. It's in that one-page template. So what we now then need to talk about is what I'm going to present today. What would it take to have a successful capital market? And in this case, specifically the equities market. We already have a debt market. We have treasury bills. We're going to have, I think, the secondary bond market, I believe, in 2019. If I'm not mistaken, maybe the NBE people can correct me. But what interests us most as private sector is the equity market. So what I thought I will do is a very brief slide. I'm just going to walk you through my thoughts. But the presentation says stock market in Ethiopia, institutions, regulations, and other support functions needed to make it successful. So, as always, I have my disclaimer. I think those of you who have seen my presentations, you've seen this, but I'll repeat it again. I was in Toronto last week giving a presentation to the Canadians about investing in Ethiopia, and I'll tell them what I told them what I'll tell you now, which is, it might sound simple, but this is important for firms like us, for people like us. All this says is, if you go and buy stocks and you do very well, it means you share it with me. But if it doesn't turn out as well, I just say, did you read the disclaimer? That's all that means, okay? That's all that means, folks. I work for a firm that has tons of lawyers, and they just say, we don't want to be liable for anybody investing and not doing well or making money and not sharing with us. So let me just start out with the basics. I know you all know this. You're very sophisticated. I just thought it might sound redundant, but I say, what is a stock market? It's a regulated marketplace where shares of public companies are traded. In its simplest form, that's what it means. Today, we do have a stock market. It's just it's illegal. There were people trading stocks under the table. Those of you like me who own shares, I own my shares by proxy anyways. If I want to sell my shares in Abyssinia Bank or United Bank, I probably have to go to the president of Abyssinia Bank or United Bank and say, do you know anybody who would buy my shares? That is already happening. And these institutions are very big. They have 20, 30, I told Eyesuswork's bank and insurance companies have probably 50, 70,000 shareholders. These are not tiny little entities. We're talking about, by Ethiopian standards, very substantial institutions that has tied up the wealth of hundreds of thousands of people with no liquidity. So and then these stocks are being traded essentially unregulated. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's good for the country. I don't think it's good for the shareholders, for the society as a whole. So what a stock market does is, in a regulated way, in a transparent way, it allows people to buy and sell shares. So that's all it is. As I've said this morning, it's not the panacea, it's not the solution, it's the cure for everything, but it's one of the bouquet of services, financial services offerings that we have. There are two types of things that happen in stock markets. There's the primary, which when you do IPOs, initial public offerings, the company selling directly to investors, first time around, and then there's the secondary market, which is what is happening now between existing shareholders, okay? That's all it means, it's a simple definition. But I think most of you know this, but for those who are not aware of this, we did have a stock market in Ethiopia. You want to know when? In 1974. It came to an end in 74, but we did have a stock market. So it's nothing new. We're just going back to where we were 40-some years ago, okay? So just don't be shocked to say, well, this is a new thing. No, it was there. And obviously, as I was mentioning earlier, to Eyesuswork, myself, and a few other people, we've been trying to organize this thing since at least 2001. And last year, we actually made light of it. I think we were borderline arrogant. I think that's the word I used last year, maybe. We were so confident about the need for this thing that we thought the government was actually giving us a Medal of Honor or something for establishing a stock market. We just sent a letter to the government inviting the then finance minister to come inaugurate the Addis Ababa Stock Exchange. It just landed on his desk, and he was probably as surprised as anybody else. What the hell is this thing? That was in 2002, 16 years ago. And he sent us a very polite letter saying, who told you to start this damn thing? Where'd you get the permission from? We were really disappointed. We were crushed. But in hindsight, it probably wasn't the right time. I got it 2002, maybe. There wasn't much to offload anyways, but that was then, okay? And this is now. I think we've talked, a lot of people mentioned how big the economy has become. And this was mentioned this morning that there are 29 stock exchanges. Here's where the rub is. We are by far the largest emerging economy in the world today that doesn't have a stock market. If we're going to be part of the global economy, we can't be that unique. We can't just say, by the way, we're joining the WTO in 2019. That's official. So, we're actually doing a lot of the things we should have been doing a long time ago. So, and this is one of those things. So we're going to join the Global Capital Markets Club, okay? But at least it makes sense. We're bigger than the Kenyan economy, at least on an aggregate GDP basis. And we're bigger than almost everybody else except two others GDPs in sub-Saharan Africa. Only Nigeria and South Africa have a bigger GDP than us, occasionally Angola, but it's an exceptional case. So I think it's about time. We have the size. But most importantly, and I'll show you in a second, we have the kinds of companies that are actually ready to be listed on the stock exchange. So here comes my main talk. I will be very, very quick. The types of institutions, the types of things that we need to have for this thing to be successful. And the first one is we need to set up a regulatory institution. It depends on how we want to set it up. It could be set up as an independent body. In the United States, it's called the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. The UK has its own version. In some countries, the central bank has a division. Maybe we can have the NB add a division, but we do need regulation. Regulation is by government. Even in the US government regulates it. This is not a self-regulated market. So let's be very clear. So it means we need to build up the capacity of whatever government institutions to be set up to be able to regulate this market, okay? So what does it do? It issues and regulates the rules for the operations of the stock market. In a simple form, that's what the regulatory body, what we call the SEC, but whatever name we give it in Ethiopia, that is key. That's very, very important. And number two is brokerage firms. Today, you don't need a license to trade under the table, right? You and your mom and your dog can trade as you wish, right? I mean, no, that's not going to happen when you have a regulated stock market. These people have to be trained. It has to be established. Now, we can also debate here, are these brokerage firms who buy and sell stocks on behalf of clients, are they going to be part of the banks? Okay, this is something we also need to, but at least we do know we need stock brokerage firms. I also refer to the US because that's the country I know the most. In the US, until a few years ago, it was prohibited for commercial banks to own stock brokerage firms and investment banks. They have what they call the Glass-Steagall Act that was enacted in the 1930s that separated commercial banking from investment banking and brokerage. But under the Clinton administration, they allowed it. I think part of the reason for the 2008 financial crisis actually is the conflicted interest of commercial banks who also have a brokerage firm, who also have an investment bank. So again, in Ethiopia, we need to debate as to whether or not we want the banks, the private banks and the state-owned bank to own a brokerage firm. But the key point is we do need brokerage firms, stock brokerage firms. We also need, of course, investment banks. Again, here we can debate if we should have these things owned by the banks or not. Investment banks bring the IPOs, the underwritings to the market, all right? Now, besides that, we could have trade clearinghouse. I'll skip that because it's a bit technical. But here's the key point. Whoever is going to be doing trading stocks in the future is going to be a professional. He will be certified. Like I am a CPA as an accountant. In the US and other countries, you need to have a certification to trade stocks. Okay, your mom or your cousin or you can't be trading stocks as they wish because this is a regulated, transparent market. So training them. Accounting firms. For 18 years, I run one of the world's largest accounting and consulting firms called Ernst & Young. Firms like us and others, and in this country, of course, the big firms are not allowed to operate, but the local capacity has to be built up for local accounting firms to do this work. All right? Because transparent financial reporting is key for shareholders to have confidence in the market. Now, this may come as not a surprise to many of you, but the financial media either has to be established or what exists today needs to expand its financial news coverage. It's to disseminate important information about the markets. Today, if you see on ETV or some of the other channels, they usually have the ECX traded Sidama coffee at X. No, we need to go beyond that and educate the public in a very sophisticated way. And also do investigative reporting about companies, when they claim earnings of X and Y and Z. The financial media, as they do in the rest of the world, play a very important role. So the financial media is a key component. And again, those of you who've traded stocks or have seen how it operates in other countries, you notice that it's the backbone for this whole entire operation is a very strong telecom infrastructure and technology support. These trades go in seconds. A second you miss could be the decision between loss and profit on your stock. So we also need to set up very sophisticated technologies. So in summary, and I don't want to go into a lot of other things, but as I said, it's just food for thought. We're going to have a stock market. That's a done deal. All of us here are stakeholders then to say, what are the institutions, what we need to do to establish, and I think I've given some of them here. There are many others. But the bottom line is we do need the capital markets. And one other thing I said last year, and I'll repeat it again, there are, in my estimate, between 50 and 70 companies today who can easily do an IPO the day the Addis Ababa Stock Exchange is ready for launch, especially the banks. Every single private banks, of course we can talk about should they merge or not, that's another issue, but all the banks in Ethiopia, I think despite what we talked about NBE having some issues here, as well regulated. I think investors have confidence. Those are the types of institutions I think would be the first to be listed. But here's the kicker. One of the very good things that happened this year, a major economic policy decision made by the Ethiopian government, which will help the stock market, is privatization. A lot of these big state-owned companies, whether it's Ethiopian Airlines, shipping lines, or others, are going to be offloaded by the government. In what form will be decided. But as I've said in the past, some of these companies should be should do an IPO on the Addis Ababa Stock Exchange. Okay? For some, it might be too late. I think the telco and others might be sold a year from now. But at least there are a lot of state-owned enterprises which could be sold through the IPO on the stock exchange. So the bottom line is we're ready. It's timely. And we're very happy that the government decided that Ethiopia will have a stock exchange. It's us as stakeholders then to make sure it's successful by establishing these kinds of successful institutions. Thank you very much for having me.
well. ዛሬ በእውነቱ የማዳምጠው ነገር ሁሉ እጅግ በጣም ደስ የሚል ነው። There were times when I felt very lonely speaking about certain issues that I thought really mattered. The issues regarding National Bank of Ethiopia, the issue of an equities market, a capital market for Ethiopia. Yes, as a matter of fact, the technical studies for the proposed Addis Ababa Stock Exchange were done by Ernst & Young, with my friend here, Zemedeneh, as the managing partner. And I do still have some copies. I think I have copies, at least, of those documents about the infrastructure that would be needed before we set up a stock market. And let me take advantage here before I ask, or I let you ask questions. I don't know how some of you feel being here today in this hall, sitting together, discussing the kind of issues we are discussing today, free, because Ethiopia today is a land where, by comparison, we could say miracles are happening. Because 1 year ago, 2 years ago, we could not have discussed those issues the way we are doing today. And for me, at the age of 81, my dreams of more than 50 years, at least, I can see the small twinkling lights at the end of the tunnel. Because ever since I became politically conscious, which was when and after I finished high school at the General Wingate Secondary School, I was dreaming. I did not go to the bush like so many other courageous young boys and girls did and sacrificed or paid the ultimate price. But I had always said in public, during the emperor's time, during Mengistu's time, and of course the last 20-some years, that someday I'm going to be still alive when I can go to the polls and put down my choice in a ballot box without fear or favor. Now that has been promised, at least in another 1 year and some. We are supposed to be driving towards that objective. In whatever language you may think or pray, I would like to let you know that these days I just pray, one, for being here to witness what is happening in this country today. Oh yes, with fears and tribulations, because Ethiopia is definitely standing at the crossroads. And each and every one of us here are responsible for delivering the maximum that each one of us can give to make sure that in this country, the next elections will be inclusive, free, fair, and truly democratic. And we can talk about these here on the stage. May God help us and guide us. So, the stock market issue we were afraid to discuss in public, it's going to be there in 2020, a year and some. For heaven's sake, this is a wonderful time to be alive. Now, forgive me for taking your time on this, because I do believe that we need to be reminded of our responsibilities to make sure that we achieve the goals that have been set before us. We can either make it, and if we fail, we can break it. Let's not fail. Now, having said that, I would now give 3 people on this side, 3 people on this one, and 3 people on the left, on my left. And please, from what I have been hearing, some of you raise your hands to ask questions and you start answering questions. All right? Now, if you have questions, ask them. The people that are supposed to give the answers are here. If you just want to raise the questions and answer them yourselves, please, let's not waste our time. So, the first three here, Abdul Manna, that's one. Anybody else on this side? So, Abdul Manna is one. Professor, now some of you have had your chances and you have lectured us already. Now I see too many hands here. Okay, because you had raised your hand first, Professor, I'll give you those two young people there. I will come back. And Asagid, you had your chance. Is there anybody else? I better stand up here because some of you I can't see you from here. So, all right, Asagid, you have also a chance. So let me start with Abdul Manna. Thank you.
Speaker, okay. አመሰግናለሁ ጋሽ ወርቅ ዛፉ። የኔ ጥያቄ ለአቶ ዘመዴነህ ነው። ስለ ስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅ በ2020 እንደሚጀመር ነግረውናል። ሶፋር ለምሳሌ ለሴኩሪቲ ኤክስቼንጅ የሚያስፈልጉ ነገሮች ጥሩ አካውንቲንግ ኢንፎርሜሽን ያስፈልጋል። ኦዲቲንግ ስታንዳርዱም ኦብቪየስሊ መሻሻል እንደሚያስፈልገው ይታወቃልና በ2014 መጨረሻ ላይ አዋጅ ወጥቷል። አዶፕቲንግ ኢንተርናሽናል አካውንቲንግ እና ኦዲቲንግ ስታንዳርድ እንደዚሁም ቦርድ ተቋቁሟል። ግን እንደምናየው ቦርዱ ያን ያህል ጠንካራ አይመስለኝም በአቅምም። እንደዚሁም ደግሞ ኢንፎርሜሽንን የለም ኦዲትድ የሆኑ ኢንቲቲዎችን ፋይናንሻል ሪፖርት ኪፕ ያደርጋልና ለሰዎችም አክሰስ አያደርግም እና ይሄው ቦርዱ ባልተጠናከረበት ሁኔታ እንዴት ነው ፋይናንሻል ኢንፎርሜሽኑ ለሴኩሪቲ ኤክስቼንጅ በሚቋቋምበት ጊዜ እንዴት ነው ጥሩ ኢንፎርሜሽን ማግኘት የሚቻልበት ሁኔታ? ሁለተኛው ሶፋር ምን ለምሳሌ ሴኩሪቲ ኤክስቼንጅ ሲቋቋም ኢንፍራስትራክቸር ያስፈልጋል፣ የቴክኖሎጂ ሂውማን ሪሶርስም ያስፈልገዋል፣ ሎኬሽንም ያስፈልገዋል እና ሶፋር ከሁለት ዓመት በኋላ የሚጀመር ከሆነ ምን ያህል ስራዎች ተሰርተዋል ሊያስጀምረን የሚችል የሚል ነው። ሰከንድ ኩዌስችን ደግሞ ለአቶ ያሬድ ነውና ስለ ፎሬን ኤክስቼንጅ እንዴት መጨመር እንዳለብን አርኒንጋችንን ብዙ ዘርዝረሃልና አንደኛው የዲያስፖራ አካውንትን ለምሳሌ ኢትዮጵያ ዲያስፖራዎች እዚህ ሀገር ያሉት ፎሬን ኤክስቼንጅ አካውንት እንዲከፍቱ ይፈቀድላቸዋል። እኔ ብዙ ጊዜ በዚህ ጉዳይ ላይ የተከራከርኩት ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያሉትን ቢዝነስ ሰዎች ይሄንን ፕሪቪሌጅ እነሱም ሊኖራቸው ይገባል የሚል እምነት አለኝና እንዴት ታየዋለህ ይሄ ነገር? እንደማንም ዲያስፖራ ኢትዮጵያ ቢዝነሶች ለምንድን ነው የውጭ ምንዛሬ እንዲከፈትላቸው እና ከየትም ሶርስ ያገኙት ይሄንን እኔ ከብላክ ማርኬትን ቢገዙትና እስከ ባንክ ውስጥ ሲስተም ውስጥ እስከ ከተቱት ድረስ ቢፈቀድላቸው የሚል እምነት አለኝና እንዴት ታየዋለህ ያሬድ? አመሰግናለሁ።
አንደኛው በሮል ኦፍ ዲያስፖራ የሚል ዶክተር ወርቁ ባቀረቡት ወዳጄ ቢሆንም በስብሰባ ላይ አንቱ ማለት ነው የምፈልገው ዳታ አለ ወይ? እኔ ውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስተርም ሆነ ሌሎችን ሳጠያይቅ how many diasporas exactly አሉ የሚለው ጥያቄ the question of evidence እና ዳታ ነውና do you have exact data የሚለው ጥያቄ ነው። እሱን ሳናቅ we cannot go forward. The second question is has there been exact የሆነ up to date የሆነ on the financial status of diaspora? In other words, their saving capacity የሚለው ጥያቄ እሱን ብዙ ዳታ ያለ አይመስለኝም፣ አፕዴትድ የሆነም አይመስለኝም። on intellectual በዶክተር ወርቁ ባቀረቡት ጉዳይ ላይ እኔም ዲያስፖራ የነበርኩ ሰው ነውና ብዙም ባይሆን መጠነኛ እውቀት አለኝ ብዬ ነው የማስበው። እነዚህ ዲያስፖራ የሚያስተላልፉት ገንዘብ ኢንስቲቱሽናላይዝድ አይደለም። In other words, it's not geared to concrete development projects. ቤት ሊሰሩ ይችላሉ፣ ዘመዶቻቸው ሊረዱ ይችላሉ ወዘተረፈ. But it's not institutionalized. So is there a possibility of having a diaspora, specific diaspora bank or like SME bank እንደሚባለው አይነት ማለት ነው? ሌላ ኔጋቲቭ ፖይንት አለ ዲያስፖራ ላይ many of those people who have been in America, the American style of governance እና value system ነው እያመጡ ናቸው። እኛ ከሀገራችን ጋርም ከሀገራችን ባህልና ሁኔታ የተዛመደ አይመስለኝም። Money has become a new religion in this country, and the main importers are this kind of people. ስለዚህ እኛ American values, norms, culture አገራችንን ይሄ ማነሱም ባህል የሸረሸረ ስለሆነ greed as a main supreme value ስለሆነ ከሀገራችን አብዛኛው ህብረተሰብ ስመለከተው የሚጣጣም አይመስለኝም። It's good for the few rich, but a problem for the vast majority of the poor population. እና ይሄን ነገር አይታሰብበትም ወይ የሚለው ጥያቄ ነው። አመሰግናለሁ።
አመሰግናለሁ። So my question goes to Dr. Worku on the issue of diaspora. ስሜ ቶሊ ጀንበሬ ይባላለሁ። PhD student at Addis Ababa University. So my question is, as you suggested, African governments need to create certain kind of platform to attract diasporas. So, but I would say, should African governments work rather to harness conditions for local business, so that when local business are functioning well, or when the business environment itself is very well, according to the utility maximization principle, for example, by default, diasporas could also come back home and invest. Because if I'm not mistaken, like before 10 years, the Ethiopian government provided land for diaspora group just as a stimulant. So they came, they took the land, and they sold it out, and they went back. So this is actually, it was intended to attract them back home so that they can invest. If you take the, for example, experience from Chinese, India, and South Korea, how they worked, the first thing that they did is making the business environment itself plausible for the local business themselves. And it is only after that that many of the returnees from America and other parts of the world created their own Silicon Valley, for example, in India, as well in China. So, thank you.
አመሰግናለሁ። የኔም ጥያቄ ለዶክተር ወርቁ ነው የሚሄደው። አንድ ፕሬዘንቴሽናቸው ላይ በአጋጣሚ ሁሉንም ፕሬዘንተርስ ማመስገን ፈልጋለሁ። ድንቅነህ ነው የሚባለው ከአዲስ አበባ ዩኒቨርሲቲ ነው። የዲያስፖራውን አቅም ወደ የሬሚተንሱን ለመጠቀም ኤድ ከማሳደድ ይልቅ ዲያስፖራውን ማሳደድ ይቀላል ብለዋልና ዲያስፖራውን በምን መልኩ ነው የምናገኘው? ወደፊት ምናልባት ካሽለስ ሶሳይቲ እያልን ነውና ሁለተኛ ደግሞ ምናልባት the late prime minister, I'm not talking about the former prime minister, the late prime minister ምን ይሉ ነበረ? ዲያስፖራው እዚህ አሴት ላይ ኢንቨስት አድርጎ የሚያከራየው ውጪ ላለ ነው እና እዛው በዶላር ነው የሚቀበለው ብሩንም እና ሬቨኒው ጀነሬት ማድረግ አልቻልንም ይሉ ነበረ። ስለዚህ አሁንስ እኔ am not pro aid ግን ኢንስቲትዩሽናላይዝድ በሆነ መልኩ የሚመጡ በኢንቨስትመንት መልክ የሚመጡ ገንዘቦችን አትራክት ማድረግ ትተን ዲያስፖራው ላይ ኢንቨስት የምናደርገው ነገር ምን ያክል አዋጭ ነው? አሁን ባልኳቸው ምክንያት ዲያስፖራው ፎርማሊ ቀደም ተነስቷል፣ ኢንስቲትዩሽናላይዝድ በሆነ መልኩ አይደለም ሬሚተንስ የሚመጣው። ሶ ሬሚተንስ ኢንስቲትዩሽናላይዝድ በሆነ መልኩ ማይመጣ ከሆነ እንደ ፈርስት ቾይስ አድርገን የዲያስፖራውን ፋይናንሻል ሶርስነት እንዴት ልናደርገው እንችላለን፣ ልንጠቀምበት እንችላለን ነው። አመሰግናለሁ።
አመሰግናለሁ። በመጀመሪያ ያው እርስዎ ብቻዎትን አይደሉም ማለት ይቻላል። አሁን ከ20 ዓመት በፊት ስትታገሉለት የነበረው አስተሳሰብ በመጀመሪያ በአስተሳሰብ ደረጃ እዚህ ውስጥ ከ60% በላይ ያሉ ምሁራን እና የኛ መምህራን ስለ ስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅ ማርኬት የአካውንቲንግ ተማሪዎች ሆነን ፈተናዎችን እንፈተን ነበር። መሬት ላይ በሌለ ነገር መጽሐፍ ላይ ያለ ነገር ብቻ ያነበብን ማለት ነው። ያ ማለት to what extent we been in a shallow financial sector ውስጥ እንዳለን ነው የሚያሳየው ማለት ሶ የለፋችሁበትን እንድታዩና ቅድምም ዊሽ ያደረጓት ውድ ኢትዮጵያ እንድትኖር ረጅም እድሜ እንዲሰጡት እኔ እመኛለሁ። ይሄንን አጋጣሚ ወስጄ ማለት ነው። ወደ ጥያቄ በቀጥታ ስገባ አቶ ዘመዴነህ አሁን ጥሩ ነው። እኔም አይ ዊሽ የዚህ የስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅ ማርኬት ወይም ካፒታል ማርኬት ኦር ሰከንደሪ ማርኬት መኖሩ የፋይናንስ ሴክተሮችን ነው በእጅጉ የሚጠቅመውና ከፋክተሮች ውስጥ አንዱ ወይም ከሚያስፈልጉ ነገሮች ውስጥ አንዱ ስለ ሬጉሌሽን ነው ያነሳኸውና እኛ እንግዲህ የትልልቆቹ የባንክና የኢንሹራንስ ተቋማት ኢንቨስት እንድናደርግ የተፈቀደልንን እንደው ብናወጣው አንዱን እንኳን ወስደን ብናወጣው no one is access to invest in short term investment western economy ውስጥ ደግሞ ባንኮችም ኢንሹራንስ ካምፓኒስም it's not only long term investment ውስጥ ብቻ አይደለም አየ ኢንቨስት አድርገው ሪተርን ኦን ኢንቨስትመንታቸው እንደገና ደግሞ አዳዲስ ሼርሆልደሮች እንዲገቡ ፍሎት የሚያደርጉት ሼሮቻቸውና ይሄ ሬጉሌሽኑ አሁን ከተባለው ነገር ጋራ ምክንያቱም I had a chance to ask you the same question access to WTO አሁን ደግሞ እየደረሰ እንዳለ ከተነገረን ምን አይነት ብሬክ ስሩ የሆኑ የፖሊሲ የአይዲዮሎጂ ኤንድ ሬጉላቶሪ ፍሬምወርኮች ቻሌንጅ ተደርገው ነው ቱ ዘ ኒር ፊውቸር እንገባለን የሚለውን ሐሳብ ለመጨበጥ የደረስነው እኔ በጣም ሃፒ በጣም ደጋፊም ነኝ እንደውም አክቲቪስት ነኝ ማለት ይችላል በዚህ ጉዳይ ላይ ሁለተኛው ፕሮፌሰር ፍስሐ ጽዮን ነው የዌስተርን አይዲዮሎጂ ከኛ አገር ካልቸር ጋራ ሊገናኝ አይችልም ፓርትሊ እውነት አለው ነገር ግን ኢንቴንሲቭ ትሬኒንግ እና ፕሮግራሞች በዚህ ፍሬምወርክ ታስበው ነው ወይ የሚል እኔም ኢንፈሲስ ለማድረግ ፈልጌ ነው አመሰግናለሁ
Excuse me, the Vice President of Jimma University. እርስዎ ነው ታለለው I'm sorry, I have made a mistake, but you asked for the floor. I want to give it to you now so that they will all answer the questions together. Thank you.
እሺ አመሰግናለሁ ስለተሰጠኝ እድል ፔፐር አቅራቢዎችንም በጣም አመሰግናለሁ እኔ አንድ ሁለት እና ሶስት ጥያቄ ላነሳ ፈልጋለሁ ያው እንግዲህ የመጀመሪያው ለአቶ ዘመዴነህ ነው ይሄ ስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅ ጉዳይ ለ50 ዓመት ያክል ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ አጀንዳ ነው ግን አጀንዳው መቼ ይቆማል የሚለው ነገር ያው በተወሰነ ደረጃ መልስ ያገኘ ይመስላል የገቨርንመንት አቴንሽን ስላለው ያው እንደሚታወቀው ያው የኢትዮጵያ ኢኮኖሚ ሰፕላይ ሳይድ ነው ችግር ያለበት ዲማንድ ሳይድ 100 ሚሊዮን ፖፑሌሽን ይዘን ችግር የለበትም ነገር ግን ይሄን ስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅ አድቮኬት ስናደርግ ሰፕላይ ሳይዱ ብናየውና ብንወያይ እንዴት አይታችሁታል ሰፕላይ ሳይዱ ምክንያቱም ክሪቲካል ነው ሊስቲንግ ካምፓኒ ብለ ሜንሽን እንዲያረካቸው ኦልሞስት የገቨርንመንትን ፐብሊክ ኢንስቲትዩሽንስ ብንወስድ ከ22 አይበልጡም ስለዚህ ሰፕላይ ሳይዱን እንዴት አድሬስ እናደርገዋለን ስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅን ነው ሁለተኛው ጥያቄ የገቨርንመንት ፊሎሶፊ አለ ፊሎሶፊ ኦፍ ዴቨሎፕመንታል ስቴት ፊሎሶፊ ያለው የስቶክ ኤክስቼንጅ ደግሞ ሊበራላይዝ የሆነ ፋይናንሻል ሴክተር ይፈልጋል ስለዚህ ይሄን እንዴት አድርገን ነው ግሩም እናደርገው እንደ አዲስ ኢንስቲትዩሽንስ የሚል ጥያቄ አለኝ ሌላው ኢየሱስወርቅ ዛፉ ያነሱት ነገር አለ ኢንስቲትዩሽናል ካፓሲቲንና ኢንፍራስትራክቸራችን ይሄንን ሰከንደሪ ማርኬትን አቬል ለማድረግ አሪን የፖዚሽን የሚል ጥያቄም አለኝ። ሶስተኛው ለአቶ ያሬድ ነው እንትን ብለው የፎሪን ከረንሲ ፖዚቲቭ ነው የሚያሳየው 5.39 ቢሊዮን ፖዚቲቭ ያሳያል። ይሄ እንግዲህ ይሄ ፖዚቲቭ የሚያሳይ ከሆነ ያው ሌላ ሀገር ላይ ትሬድ ባላንሳቸው ኔጌቲቭ ከሆነ ፎሪን ከረንሲ ሾርቴጅ የላቸውም ብዙ ሀገሮች ያላቸው ኤክስፔሪየንስ። ይሄ ከምን የመጣ ነው ታዲያ? አሁን ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ያለው የፎሪን ከረንሲ ክራንቹ ዋት ኢዝ ዘ ፕሮብለም ቢሃይንድ ኢት የሚለው ነገር ምንድን ነው የሚለውን ነገር ለመጠየቅ ስለፈለግኩ ነው። አመሰግናለሁ።
Please. So, Dr. Worku, to Yared, and my young man here, Zemedeneh. So, Dr. Worku, please.
አመሰግናለሁ። የተያያዙ ናቸው ጥያቄዎቹ እና በአንድ ላይ በግል ሳይሆን በአንድ ላይ ሀሳቡን መልሳለሁ። ጥናት አለ ወይ? ቁጥሩንስ እንደው ለመሆኑ እናውቀዋለን ወይ? እኔ የማውቀው ጥናት የለም። በኢትዮጵያውያን ላይ አሁን በዓለም ላይ ስንት ኢትዮጵያውያን ውጭ ይኖራሉ ለሚለው እንዲሁ በግምት የምንጠቀምበት ቁጥር 3 ሚሊዮን እንላለን እንጂ በደፈናው ምን ያህል እንደሆኑ የተጠና ወረቀትን የማውቀው የለም። በምን ሙያ ላይ ምን ያህል የገንዘብ አቅም አላቸው፣ ቢመጡስ ምንድነው ፋይዳቸው የሚል አጠቃላይ የኢትዮጵያ ላይ የተሰራ ስራ ብዙ የለም። ግን ከማንኛውም የዳያስፖራ ጥናት አይለዩም። የአፍሪካ የተጠና አንዳንዶቹን ያካፈልኳችሁ የዓለም ያሉትን ብናይ የኢትዮጵያውያን ከዛ አይለይም እና ለሀገራቸው ያላቸው ናፍቆት ጥልቅ መሆኑ ይታወቃል። በአቅምም ጥሩ ደረጃ የደረሱ ብዙዎች እንዳሉ ይታወቃል። ስለዚህ ይሄ ነገር ተከፍቶ በደንብ ቢያዝ ትልቅ ጥቅም ለሀገር ይመጣል የሚለው አጠቃላይ ስሜቱ እዛ አለ። ከአሜሪካ ማንፈልገውን ነገር ይዘውብን ይመጣሉ የሚለው ስጋት እነሱም ሳይመጡ ምን የት እንዳለን ብናይ ጥሩ ነው እና ይሄ መሽሎኪያው ብዙ ነው እና እነሱ እኔ በብዛት በማውቀው ደረጃ የምናገረው በጣም የሀገር ፍቅር የወገን የመርዳት ፍላጎት ያላቸው በጣም ጨዋ የሆኑም በጣም ብዙ ስላሉ ይጠቅሙናል ብዬ ነው የማስበው። መሬትም ቢሰጣቸው ሰርተው ለውጭ ሀገር ሰዎች አከራይተው ዶላሩን እዛው ይሰበስባሉ። እኔ እንዳውም ልናገር የፈለኩት አመለካከታችን ላይ ነው። ይሄ አመለካከት እንደው አንድን ነገር በመልካም ለማየት ከፈለግን መልካም ምሳሌ መምረጥ ይቻለናል። አንድን ነገር በመጥፎ ጎኑ ለማየት ከፈለግን መጥፎ ምሳሌ መጥቀስ ይቻለናል። ስለዚህ ያለን አመለካከት ወደ ቀናው ቢሆን እጅግ በጣም ብዙ ቀና ነገር ሊመጣ ይችላል። ውጭ ካሉት የኢትዮጵያ ሀብቶች በአፍሪካ ደረጃ ነው የተናገርኩት፣ ግን የኢትዮጵያ ሀብቶች ናቸው የዳያስፖራ ሰዎችና በቀናው ይሄን እንደሆነ እጅግ በጣም ብዙ በቀና ፍላጎት መጥተው ሞክረው ጥረው በጣም ባላቸው እውቀት ሞክረው ሳይሆንላቸው ጠቅለው ይወጡም አሉ። ነገሩ ሁኔታው አልተስተካከለም። አሁን በቅርቡ አንድ እንደዚሁ ሳነብ ኢትዮጵያ is not open for business ብዬ ደምድሜ መመለሴ ነው ያለ ሰው አውቃለሁ። እና ከፈት ቢል በጣም ጠቃሚነት ያመጣል ብዬ ነው የማስበው። እና በቀላሉ አይሆንም፣ ስራ አለው፣ ጥናት ይጠይቃል። ግን በአጠቃላይ ስለ ዳያስፖራ ያለን አመለካከት ትንሽ ወደ ብርሃንነት ቢመጣ ተጠቃሚ ኢትዮጵያ ትሆናለች የሚል አጠቃላይ ነው። ጊዜ ቢኖር ኖሮ የምነግራችሁ ሁሉ ምሳሌ ነበረ፣ ካለም እሞክራለሁ በኋላ።
እሺ ሁለት ጥያቄ ነው የጠየቁት። አንደኛው የለንደን ወዳጅ እንግዲህ እሱ የጠየቀው ይሄ ነገር ሊሚትን እኛ አሁን ችግራችን ቅድም ያው ስለተጣደፍኩና ማቅረብ አልቻልኩም እንጂ it's the problem is the regulation and at the end of the day we have a system where it stops money coming in ማንም ሰው ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ብሩን አምጥቶ ቢያስቀምጥ it shouldn't be our problem be it an Ethiopian or a foreign citizen they should a lot of countries even very highly regulated ሀገሮች እንኳን ከስዊስ ጀምሮ እስከ ብሪቴን offshore banking አላቸው they mobilize even not clean money they just clean it for the so if we have to because they have to give priority for their own interest but anyone who's earning dollar should be entitled to have dollar if not why not even if somebody can buy and then store his asset in dollars why not what's the problem the Kenyans do it the Somalis do it they don't have a problem so what we have to worry is about increasing our dollar reserve we have to so I'll support the liberalization of the system that's the main problem and then we have to let people because everyone now it's a good example if you honestly ask these things because we create dollar scarce commodity people not bringing it into Ethiopia even the exporters they have a company in Dubai or somewhere else they sell to their own company and from their company they sell it because they're not sure to bring the money so they only bring into the country what is essential for them otherwise they won't do it so we have created wells in Dubai in Kenya, in China, or in Malaysia, wherever. So that's a big issue. So we have to liberalize it. If we let it, the dollar will come, and then that's the issue. The other thing is we have 50, I'm just giving a rough estimate of I don't know. Everybody talk about $5 billion direct or indirect remittance through the World Bank and all that thing. All are the estimates figure, but it shouldn't have been the messages. We should have at least something equivalent to our import because we have as Dr. Worku said we have a large diaspora community sending money and then we have a tourist opportunity we can use all these things to compensate for our deficit if we focus only on export we'll never achieve it that's the message thank you
Okay, there were just a couple questions directed towards me. One was related to financial reporting, IFRS. For the non-accountants in the room, I know this is very boring, but it's very important. It's only this past year, actually this year, effective I think June 30, all companies in Ethiopia have to report their financials according to IFRS, which is the International Financial Reporting Standards. But not everybody is doing it. I know the banks have adapted it. I think the insurance companies have adapted it, and the other smaller companies and the government entities are going to do that. So that's a start. And actually, that's the kind of stuff that's far ahead of all the other things that I showed you on the board about the things that we need to have a successful stock market. The one I would say far along the process is the financial reporting, at least in terms of the regulation being in place. It says IFRS. But as you pointed out, we do need to build the capacity of the accounting firms. We do need to build the capacity of the regulatory body. There's an auditor's regulatory body. So those have to be done. All the other things, and I'm going to compress all the 2-3 other questions that related to regulations, none of that is even started yet. Okay, because it's all new. Setting up the regulatory body, the SEC is new. It hasn't been. I do know there's a team either in town or is it going to be coming in town from the World Bank to provide technical assistance to the Ethiopian government about establishing the stock market. So the World Bank is going to use its global resources. Hopefully they'll be able to roll out these things fairly quickly. 2 years is a very short period of time. So it might not necessarily mean beginning of 2020. In fact, I think it will be at the back end of 2020 if we have something up and running, but it could be sliding into 2021. But the point is we're on that path, and all these institutions, all the infrastructure I talked about, whether trading, as Sagid asked, or other things, that needs to be prepared. But nothing other than the financial reporting, the IFRS requirement, has started yet. Okay? Can I just add one thing, though? I mean, this thing about Americans have been raised so many times. My good friend, the professor, who I banter with at the university, in Addis Ababa University, every time we were there, I like he's feisty, but I don't want us to leave this impression that those diasporas who come from the U.S. come with bad attitudes. There might be a few, but there's about 500,000 of us, or if not more, and most love their country. Actually, to be very honest, I mean, I have an office in D.C. I work with a lot of them. I meet thousands of Ethiopians every year in various forums in the United States. Actually, given a chance, many of them would love to come and do good things here. Okay? I think lumping them as bringing, I know the professor is trying to be provocative, and I understand he's good. He's a good professor, by the way, okay? But on this point, I would like to respectfully disagree that we all bring bad habits or we're all greedy. I think that was the point. I mean, there's nothing wrong to want to make money, right? I mean, that's what greases the ball of the economy, but should not be interpreted as devaluing our culture. I think building the culture of Ethiopia starts from the family, not from people coming from abroad. You got to teach your kids how to behave, what to do, not to learn from diasporas who drive, 8-cylinder SUVs in Addis when they should be driving a mini car. I don't know. Anyways, please just be aware we're not all vultures, huh? Okay, thank you.
የተከበራችሁ ታዳሚዎች መጀመሪያውኑ እንዳልኩት these three presenters are really and truly heavyweights. All right? Now, some of my friends on the floor have expressed their fears, have expressed their reservations about whether or not Ethiopia is ready for a stock market. Do we have the infrastructure, etc.? Listen, I mean, we've been talking about this for over 10 years. One thing I know about my countrymen and women is that we are very good performers when we are under pressure. So I am not going to say, give us 5 years, 10 years to prepare for a stock market to operate smoothly in Ethiopia. No, because we will never be ready if that is our approach. So I do hope we will look at things positively. Of course, I am an insurance man basically, and insurance people are, they are very positive. They take your money, they give you pieces of paper, and they hope that you are not going to make any accidents or you're not going to make any claims. Because of that, I am an eternal optimist. And I think if we start, doesn't matter, like Zemedeneh said, the stock market may be operational in 2020, early, middle, or the latter part of 2020, or even 2021, or even 2022. But let's start it. Let's move forward. I think that is really foreign exchange. I can tell you a story. Even that. Look, don't ask me how, but I do get some foreign exchange as an income myself. And I'm allowed to keep a portion of it in dollars. But if I am sick and dying tomorrow and I want to buy medicine, I can't use it. I have to travel out to claim a portion of that money and take it out with me. Why? For heaven's sake, why? It is the restriction that makes people feel greedy, and they don't want their foreign exchange around here because once it touches their country's soil, they have no control over it. That's how they feel. But if it were to be free, fine, I have dollars, and when I want to use it, I can use it. Excellent. So it is the kind of regulation that we have at hand that is actually saying to those with foreign exchange, don't bring it here, because if you bring it, you are not in control of that money anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to, we have already taken more than the time that has been allocated to us. I'm sorry, by the way, I seem to have half lost my voice today. Otherwise, I would have sung for you this afternoon. Thank you very, very much.
Please, I would like to ask you to give a round of applause for the presenters and a wonderful moderator. Since we've been talking about the stock market and we're not really sure of it, so I got this joke about the stockbroker. And the stockbroker was sick and he was in the hospital. So when the nurse took the temperature, he asked, how much is it? And the nurse told him it's 102. And the stockbroker told him, sell it on 103. So thank you so much. So now we're going to have a refreshment and matchmaking and exhibiting tour for Dr. Gamachu is saying something. 5 minutes? Okay. 10 minutes break. So I'll give you 15 minutes break. So let's get back as soon as we finish our coffee. Thank you.